Hi, I'm Marty Schupak. Welcome to Schupak Sports. We have 30,000 video clips coming, mostly on youth sports, all different sports. Please subscribe and you'll be informed when these new clips are coming. And please check out our Friday at 1 Sports Hero. Today I'm talking about football terms, and I'm doing this because I get confused sometimes. I played football in high school. I even played in college, but sometimes these terms just go beyond me, and you hear these announcers on TV, Cris Collinsworth, Troy Aikman, Tony Romo, and sometimes I think they assume that us fans know more than we really know. So I'm going to go over it very quickly in the next, I guess, 10 to 12 minutes. We're going to start with the defense, and if I cover my face, excuse me, because I want you to see this. If you look on top, you'll see the basic 4-3 defense. And basically, we all know this if you watch football: 4 linemen, 3 linebackers, 3-4 defense. You got 3 linemen and you got 4 linebackers. Now, when they talk about the gaps, which is interesting, we have a center here, we have a guard, tackle, a tackle. I'll go through this fairly quickly, but when they talk about the A gap, it's the gap on each side of the center. When they talk about the B gap, it's the gap between the guard and the tackle. They talk about the C gap, it's the really outside the tackle. Now, I did a little research, and as it turns out, is an author, John T. Reed. He's written a lot of good stuff on youth sports, baseball and football in particular. He's a good guy, and he did research, and I find his research is almost flawless. And apparently the naming of the gaps, it was thought that it was the old Alabama coach, whose name escapes me now, Bear Bryant, I'm sorry. But it turns out he believes it was Bum Phillips, who coached, an old-time coach who coached Houston. But when Bum Phillips was in high school, I guess down in Texas, he began to name the gaps. Okay, so that's the gaps. Now, I'll try to go over this quickly, the different techniques. You'll hear the announcers say a 1 technique, a 2 technique, a 0 technique. We'll start with 1 technique. It's when the defensive player, okay, lines up on the outside shoulder of the tackle. A 0 technique is when, like, a nose guard will line up head up on the center, okay? 2 technique, if they call that, it's like when they line up head up on the guard. 3 technique, they line up on the outside shoulder of the guard. A 4 technique, they line up head up on the tackle. And 5 technique, they line up on the outside shoulder of the tackle. Okay, so I'm going to use the gap picture, but 0 technique is head up. And a lot of times a good strategy is they use the defensive tackle in the gap, and almost at the last second, they'll move him head up. Some of the defensive tackles that do this, Aaron Darnold, who's, to me, is like one of the best defensive tackles to ever play the game. Chris Jones of the Chiefs. Quentin Williams of the Jets has been coming on strong the last couple of years. They usually line up in the A gap, but sometimes they go head up on the center, okay? You'll hear also on the linebackers, they'll use the term Mike linebacker, and a lot of fans seem to think that the Mike linebacker is the linebacker that calls the signals, that he has a microphone. But that could be true, but in reality, all it is the first letter, M, for middle. Okay, so the Mike linebacker is the middle linebacker. And I believe that I've read that Tom Landry, the old-time Dallas Cowboys coach, started to name these. The Sam linebacker, okay, think the first letter, it means he's on the strong side. So on the offensive line, if the tight end is heavy on one side, and the linebacker there, closest there to the strong side, that's the Sam linebacker. The will linebacker is the weak side linebacker, probably usually without the tight end. A lot of teams have 2 or 3 tight end sets, but basically that's what it is. Mike for middle, Sam for strong, and excuse me, Will for weak side. So that's it on this part of the defense. And again, what I'm going over, it's going to cover like about 80 to 90% of what you hear. You could go into some, take a deep dive into some of these terms. There's a whole lot of them. Okay. All right. You'll hear the terms cover 2 and cover 3 on defense. Quickly, I'll just go over it. Okay, if you look at this setup, when they say cover 2, they're talking about the safeties. There are 2 safeties. And what happens is they'll cover half of the field. One safety will cover one half, and one safety will cover the other half. They're dividing the field in half. Okay? When they're in a 2 zone, the weakness supposedly is the deep middle. Okay, and what happens though too is the reason that the middle gets a little weak at the snap of the ball. A lot of times the safeties will move a little bit towards the sidelines as they see the movement. Okay, so that's it. Now on the cover 2, usually teams that have a very good defensive line with a good pass rush, 4 down linemen will go into a cover 2. They'll depend upon the pass rush. And right now, as I'm filming this, the Eagles and the Jets, they have a pretty good defensive line. So that's the cover 2 with the safeties dividing the field in half. Just as you would think, cover 2, this is a cover 3. And as you see, you have 3 deep players dividing the field into thirds. I'll hold it up a little closer. All right. You have 3 deep defenders, 4 underneath players. This is used a lot. It's very balanced. It's used early downs, like first and second downs. Teams will try to beat a cover 3, throwing a lot of play action and throwing a lot of balls into the flat area over here and over here, or into the seam area. Okay, so that's the cover 2 and the cover 3. There are a lot more, but that's all we're going to cover right now. Again, I'm just going to go over what I think is 80 to 90%. This is something I have from last year. So you'll see some numbers. The numbers are basically on the season before. And this is going through the 11 personnel, 12 personnel. Now, when you have 11 personnel, you're going to hear the announcers say, you might hear like Tony Romo says, the Rams are in 11 personnel. All they're talking about is 1 running back and 2 tight ends. All right. When they talk about 12 personnel, it's 1 running back. I'm sorry, that has to be wrong. Oh, it's 11 personnel is 1 running back, and I'm sorry, 1 tight end. All right, 12 that's wrong. That's a misprint. 12 personnel is 1 running back and 2 tight ends. So the first number, like on 12 or 11, represents running back, and the second number is a tight end. 21 personnel is 2 running backs and 1 tight end. Okay. 13 personnel, which a lot of teams are using. The Patriots, I believe, are one of the first teams when they had Gronkowski and the late Hernandez, and they would use like 3 tight ends. 13 personnel, 3 tight ends. Again, the first number, 1 running back, 3 tight ends, that's 13. Again, I keep going back to this. I'm sorry about this misprint. This is should be 1 tight end. And they'll put like 22 personnel, 2 running backs, and 2 tight end. Okay. Now, also, I have on the back, they'll have 0 personnel. Will they have literally no tight ends and no running backs? And they have a whole bunch of receivers. Okay. So that's basically it. And keep listening and go on the internet if you want to learn about this stuff a little more deeply, if you want to take a deep dive. Don't think that just because you might not recognize a term that it's you. Okay, I know a lot of football fans that don't know a lot of these terms. You could be a fan and just enjoy the game. You don't have to know 100% of the terms, but this is just a little segment just to get you familiar with some of the terms that are used over and over again from the announcers. So again, please subscribe to Schupak Sports. And this has been Marty Schupak. Until next time.